Hey YouTube, I'm Jess. Welcome to a new video. In today's video, we're gonna create this makeup look together. It is my annual holiday glam makeup look. I took the time to really go in depth and give some really solid tips and tricks in this video. I'm hoping that it's really educational for you guys. So if you did like this style of video, please make sure to give it a thumbs up and I can film more. And without further ado, let's get started with the makeup tutorial. All right, friends, let's get started. I had a couple of questions about skin prep in my real life, and I feel like I skip over that part in a lot of my videos because it's very repetitive. I do the same thing every single time, but because we're going into a little bit more detail in today's video, let's talk about prepping the skin. Your makeup is only gonna look as good as the skin that's underneath. Makeup also goes on better over a more hydrated base, and the more hydrated your skin looks, the more youthful you look. The type of base, the type of skin look that's really popular right now is a dewy look. It's the look of really hydrated, glowing, fresh, almost wet skin. So the best way to achieve that type of look is to prep your skin with a super hydrating, really dewy base, and then go over top of that with a more matte foundation. That way you're gonna get the look of the dew and the glow without your makeup just melting off of your face after a couple of hours. I do my skin prep the same way every single day. I usually start with an essence, and then I go in with a serum, and then I go in with a moisturizer. The order that you apply your skincare products is by texture. So an essence is a really lightweight formula. It's almost like the texture of water. Some of them are sprayed out of bottles. Some of them come in bottles with droppers. I'm actually completely out of mine at the moment. I ordered more in Black Friday. Same thing with my serum. I'm actually completely out of serums, but I do have a bunch of samples of serum. So I'm gonna go in with serum today. I am gonna skip my essence. I'm gonna use the Charlotte Tilbury Magic Serum Crystal Elixir. So what is a serum? A serum is a skincare product that's a lightweight texture. It has a concentrated formulation of skincare ingredients, and because it's such a lightweight consistency, it's able to penetrate quickly into the skin. Not all serums are going to work well underneath makeup. For example, I have a serum that I love, this one from Kate Somerville. It's the Biomimicking Peptide Serum. The consistency of this is such that it sits on top of the skin and sinks in slowly. And so when you try to blend makeup over top of that, you can get pilling. You can get the little bits of serum that are sitting on top of your skin being picked up by your brush or your sponge and creating little pills and texture in your makeup. So the best way to figure out if a serum works well under makeup is just trial and error. If a serum doesn't work well under makeup and you've purchased it, just switch it to your nighttime routine and use that serum at night instead of in the morning. The Charlotte Tilbury Magic Skin Serum sinks in really quickly, gives a nice punch of moisture to the skin. And then anytime you use a serum, you want to go over top with a moisturizer. So serums are lightweight, full of active ingredients like hyaluronic acid or vitamin C. Moisturizers are going to be a thicker texture, and they're going to lock that product in there. So your moisturizer is creating a barrier between the air and your serums, preventing the serums from being pulled back out of the skin. Moisturizers can sometimes have active ingredients in them as well, but typically it'll be a lesser concentration of those active ingredients. So the one I'm using today is the Reversa Collagenike. I actually always use Charlotte Tilbury Magic Cream when I'm applying foundation. But I just reached for this one because I was concentrating on what I wanted to say about moisturizers, and I grabbed this one instead. I usually use this one at night, but if you're looking for an amazing daytime moisturizer that works beautifully underneath makeup, Magic Cream is the way to go. This is like a hack. If you want your foundation to look its absolute best, if you want your skin to be glowy and luscious and plump and have your makeup go on super smooth, then this is what you need to be putting underneath. It's amazing for underneath makeup. It's also super hydrating and really calming. So it's really, really nice as a daily daytime moisturizer as well as a primer for underneath makeup. I'm gonna have all the products that I talk about in today's video linked in the description box down below if anybody wants to check anything out. When you guys click on my links and shop through them, for the most part, I earn a really small amount of commission, which helps to support my channel. So thank you so much if you guys do that. Once my skin is prepped, I will almost always move on to the eyes, especially if I'm doing a more glam makeup look. If I'm just doing everyday makeup and I'm not going to be really putting on eyeshadow, then I would continue going in with like my tinted moisturizer or my foundation. But because we're doing a more full-on, full glam makeup look today, I want to be able to clean up underneath my eyes if my eyeshadow creates any fallout. I'm also going to do a winged liner, so if I screw that up, I can use concealer to clean that up as well. And I always start my eye makeup with an eyeshadow primer. So this one is from Laura Mercier. It is the Eye Basics in the color Linen. I've tried a bunch of different eyeshadow primers and this is my favorite one. Eyeshadow primer serves a few different functions. The first is that if your eyeshadow primer is tinted, which majority of them will be, it's gonna help even out the skin tone around your eyes. I don't know if you guys noticed, but I have a lot of darkness around my eyes and that can impact the way that eyeshadows stand out on top of it. So by creating a nice smooth canvas, it's going to make my eyeshadow go on much more smoothly and more uniform. Eyeshadow primer also creates a barrier between your skin and your eyeshadow, so it helps to prevent oil from coming through your eyelids and causing your eyeshadow to fade. So if you have problems with your eyeshadow lasting throughout the day, an eyeshadow primer is going to really help you with that. It can also really help if you have an issue with your mascara transferring. So if throughout the day your eyelashes are touching the top of your eye socket and you get transfer, that's happening because there is oil from your skin touching your mascara, causing it to break down and then smudge. So if you have this eyeshadow primer down, then that's gonna help prevent those oils from coming through and help prevent your mascara from smudging. We're gonna go in with our eyeshadow. So for today's look, I'm gonna be doing a classic gold kind of smoky eye. I feel like the holidays is a great time to pull out your golds and your shimmers. For today's look, I'm going to be using the Natasha Denona Metropolis palette. I'm going to do an eyeshadow look with just 3 different eyeshadows. So when you guys are choosing your eyeshadows for today's look, you're going to need something that looks like this right here. Something that is just maybe 1 or 2 shades darker than your natural skin tone that we're going to use to create depth and shape to our eyeshadow look. You're gonna need a shimmery, sparkly gold shade like this one right here. And then you're gonna need a darker brown shade to smoke everything out and again, add in a little bit of depth and drama. You want this shade to be quite a bit darker than this shade right here. And you want your 2 browns to be matte and your gold to be shimmery. So the look that I'm doing today, you guys, you can do this with any set of 3 different shadows. So for example, if I was doing this look with blues, I could use the same color right here, something 1 or 2 shades darker than my skin tone. And then I could use this blue shimmery color and then this dark blue here that's also a matte. So this look can be done with any color scheme, as long as you have 2 mattes, 1 light and 1 dark, and 1 sparkly shimmer shade that's kind of in between the 2. Okay, so I'm gonna start with a fluffy brush in the lightest of the 3 colors here. When I dip into the color, I really saturate my brush in product, and then I tap off any of the excess back into the palette. If you're in your bathroom, you can tap it off into the sink or whatever you want to do. I'm going to start by placing the brush on the outside corner of my eye. The place where you set your brush down first is going to have the strongest impact of pigment. So if I were to place my brush down here, I would have a lot more difficulty blending this out because I want majority of the pigment to be on the outer corner of my eye as opposed to the inner corner of my eye. So I'm placing the brush down here, and then in little circular motions, I'm gonna start to bring that kind of up above the crease of my eye socket towards the inner corner. And I like to bring my eyeshadows right down into this part of my eye here where it almost connects to the bridge of my nose. I really like the shape that this look gives my eyes. You don't have to bring it as far in if that feels too dramatic for you or you feel like that doesn't look good with your eye shape. You can stop halfway across here, or you can bring it down into the inner corner here instead of kind of down and out. Play around with different shapes because it's going to be different with every different type of eye shape. If you had a more hooded eye, what I like to do is blend on the outer corner here and then really just mostly blend out and up. You don't really even have to bring it in far at all with that type of eye shape. As I come back out on this outer corner, I'm flicking out and up. You guys, blending is the most important part when you're doing your eyeshadow. The biggest improvement that I think could be made that makes it go from the look of like an amateur to a professional having done your makeup is giving that eyeshadow a nice soft blend. You don't have to be afraid of it. I feel like people don't want to blend out their eyeshadow this much because they're afraid of it looking really dramatic, or a lot of people are afraid of like the punched in the eye, like smoky eye look. That's why we're using a color that's really not too dark, not too deep, just a couple shades darker than our natural skin tone so that things look soft. Next, I'm going to switch to a brush that's more flat. You can use your finger, you can use something even fluffier than this, like this little paddle brush I really like to use for this step as well, but it's dirty. And I'm gonna go into my gold shade next, so my middle toned shimmery shade. And this color, I'm going to start on the inner corner and just tap with more shimmery, sparkly shadows. A tapping motion is gonna work better than a swiping motion when you're first applying it. It's just gonna help those bigger pigments and those bigger chunks of glitter just really press down into the skin and not just instantly fall off the eye. Okay, so starting from the inner corner, stopping when I get to my crease, and then just blending over across the lid. I'm gonna take it about 3/4 of the way across the lid. You can go all the way if you want to, but it's not really necessary. The warmth from your finger and the pressure that it would give would really make this color pop, but with my nails, it's pretty tough to get in there with my fingers. So I just go for a finger-like brush. I'm getting a ton of fallout, a ton of eyeshadow is kind of falling down onto my cheeks here. I'm not worried about that at all. That's why we are doing our eyeshadow before our base makeup. We'll go and clean that up before we do our foundation. So once you've got that shimmery shade down, you shouldn't even really need to do any blending of that color because we put down the matte shade underneath and did all of that blending beforehand. That's gonna kind of give us the blend and the fade from the shimmery shade into the more natural skin tone shade into our natural skin so that we don't have to do too much blending of that shimmery shadow. If you're blending things that have a lot of glitter or shimmer in it, you can often be dusting that shimmer right off of your lid. Avoid that as much as possible. If you feel like you need a little gentle blend along the edges, you can go ahead and do that, but for the most part, we've kind of already done the work and shouldn't need to do too much blending of that color. And then finally, we're gonna go in with the darkest matte shade. I'm gonna use the same small fluffy brush that I used to apply the first shadow just to start. And I'm gonna press this pigment right onto the outside corner here. Again, I'm just pressing, we're not swiping or blending yet. I'm just getting the color down where I want it. And then once I've got that pigment down, I'm gonna switch to a super fluffy little brush and really softly go over the edges of that. So I'm blending up and out and then in towards the center of the lid. But you guys, I'm hardly touching it. I'm being super gentle and just helping that shadow along. We're just gonna take our time. If I took this giant fluffy brush and just started going to town on that color, it would just blend everything together and make everything look really murky. So we wanna just blend the edges softly and gently and slowly. So what I'm doing here is just creating some depth on the outer corner of the eye, and I'm blending that darkness in to the crease of my eye as well. But I don't want to bring that too far in. I'm just taking it, you know, onto this outer portion of the crease here. So blending up and out and then back in, up and out and back in. And we can do little windscreen wiper motions and little circular blends as well. And that's it. Like super easy 3 eyeshadow look. It looks messy right now, it looks crazy, but we're gonna clean it up, we're gonna fix it. One thing that you can do here is if you have any type of glitter topper, so an eyeshadow that has like some really chunky glitter in it, or like a Charlotte Tilbury pop shade, or if you have any of like the Hourglass or Tarte glitters and you want to add something a little bit more glittery to this look, what you can do is take that glitter. I'm just going to go into another Natasha Denona palette that I have here that has a really glittery shade in it. I'm gonna go in with my finger because, like I said, glitters typically work better on the finger. And you can just add that extra glittery shade right to the very center of the lid, just for some extra pop. This is just an extra step. You don't have to do this. It's just if you have that and you want to play with a little bit more shimmer and sparkle. Okay, so I'm gonna keep my eyeshadow palette nearby because we are gonna eventually need it to finish up the eye look when we get to the lower lash line. But in the meantime, to finish up the top, I'm gonna go ahead and do a winged eyeliner. So I have a full winged eyeliner tutorial video. I will link it across the top here and in the description box down below if you guys wanna see step by step how I recommend doing a winged eyeliner. I go kind of back and forth between using a liquid liner, a pencil, a powder, and a gel. I'm kind of a fan of all of the above, honestly. Today, I think I'm gonna go ahead and just do a full-on black gel liner. It's my favorite look. So for this look, you don't have to do winged liner. It's just my preference for my own self, my own face, my own eye shape. You don't have to flick it out if you don't want to, but I would recommend definitely doing at least some form of eyeliner, especially if you're going to be wearing lashes, which for this full glam look, we are gonna be popping on a pair of lashes today. You need that eyeliner to hide the lash band, but also I just feel like makeup looks incomplete without at least a little bit of liner. If you're too afraid to use a black, use a brown. You can use like a brown eyeshadow even if you want to, but you do just want to create a little bit of depth along your eyelashes. I have another entirely separate video where I go step by step and take my time explaining all the little things that you need to do to have a perfect false eyelash application. I know it's something that people really struggle with, and it is definitely something that takes practice, but it can absolutely be done by just like the everyday occasional makeup wearer, whether you're putting on lashes once a year or once a month. I feel like it is something that is pretty manageable if you just kind of know the steps that you need to take in order to get them on properly. So definitely check out that video if you want like a super in-depth tutorial for it. So what I've just done is removed the lashes from the little plastic insert, and I know that these lashes fit me and don't need a trim, but what you're gonna wanna do with your lashes at home, you're gonna set your lashes right on your eye as if you were applying them. And then look into a mirror and see if you feel like you need to trim the lashes. So if the lashes come too far into this inner part of your eye, or if they're too long and they're coming like down and off your lash. Sometimes I see people who haven't trimmed their lashes are dragging their eyes down instead of lifting them up because they haven't trimmed them. I'm gonna try and show you guys what that looks like. They haven't trimmed them and they have this outer section of their lash coming down here, and that's pulling your eye down. So what you would want to do in that case is just chop that little bit off, and that's going to give you back that lift. These ones work for me without having to trim them, so I'm not going to trim them now. Definitely test the lash before you glue it on to make sure that it's going to work for your eye shape and your eye size. I like to use lash glue that has this little brush on it. I feel like it's easier and it dries a lot quicker than the duo glues that come in the little squeezy tube. This is just the Sephora clear brush tip eyelash adhesive. It works perfectly fine. I have no issues with it. Yeah, it's a perfectly fine lash glue. So I'm just gonna apply a little bit to the lash band here. And then I'm gonna take that lash that has the glue on it and I'm just gonna set it down. I'm just gonna leave that over there and we're gonna let that glue dry and get a little bit tacky before we attempt to stick it on our eye. This is probably my #1 tip for applying lashes is you wanna make sure the glue is sticky, because if it's super wet and you go and stick it on your eyelid, it's not gonna stick down. It's just gonna start moving all over the place. You're gonna get glue everywhere and it'll turn into a big mess and make things way harder than it needs to be. Then I get some glue on my second lash. And this glue is really lightweight and pretty fast drying, so that's probably enough time for me to wait to then go back in with the first lash that I put the glue on and go ahead and apply it. If you're using a thicker glue, then you may need to wait like even up to 60 seconds. You can kind of blow on it if you feel like you want to. Give your glue some time to dry before you apply your lashes. And just like that, they're on. Super easy. Oh man, you guys, I'm talking too much. I forgot to put mascara on. I always do my mascara before my lashes. Talking too much. All right, so once the lashes are stuck on, what I do is look in the mirror and I make sure that they're even. If one lash is more up and one lash is more down, it's gonna make you look so off in any photos that you take that night. It makes such a big difference making sure that your lashes are even. So I can see on this eye actually that the ones that are on the inner corner are kind of pointing down. So I'm just gonna take my tweezers and kind of squeeze them together and reposition them to make sure that this inner corner has the lashes going up, same as on this side. This one's stuck down perfectly. It doesn't really need any adjusting, and so I'm just kind of matching this side to that side. And yeah, for the most part, it's just these little inner corner ones need to go up. And it's just that easy. So now I'm gonna go in and apply some mascara. I'm really gonna focus it on the roots of my lashes and make sure I'm getting mostly my natural lashes with this, although it's impossible not to get it on my falsies here as well. Okay, lashes are on. So we're gonna move to our base makeup. We're gonna give the eyes a little bit of a break here. And so this first step, the first thing that we're gonna do is take a little cotton pad and some micellar water. You could also use a makeup wipe for this if you have those handy, or even a Q-tip. If you don't have that much followed, a Q-tip would work well too. And I'm just gonna go ahead and just wipe off all of the excess eyeshadow that has fallen down. If you need to clean up your winged liner, this would be a good time to do that as well. You can take a little Q-tip and just run it underneath. Actually, I don't feel like I need to do that right now, but let me just do it just to show you. So this is for anybody who's like getting into doing eyeliner, or even myself sometimes when I'm doing my wings, they don't come out the way that I want them to and they just need a little bit of adjusting. The easiest thing to do is just take a Q-tip, dip it in your micellar water, and then you can just run that Q-tip underneath the eyeliner to sharpen it. And kind of get it the way that you want it. Now I've messed with a good thing. I really liked the way my liner looked before I did that. Okay. You can just flip it over and use the dry side to kind of wipe away any of the excess oil. But yeah, now I've gone and messed. I've gone and messed with a good thing, guys, just for you, to show you that you can do that. So let me just fix these. Okay, that's all good. So we're gonna move back to complexion. So like I mentioned at the beginning of the video, we're going for like a really dewy, glowy looking skin. So at this point is when you can go in with a hydrating primer or like a glowy primer. So if you have the Charlotte Tilbury Hollywood Flawless Filter or the e.l.f. Halo Glow or any like glowy, dewy priming product, this is when we are going to be using it. So I'm gonna use the Auric Glow Lust for this. And then I'm gonna take my finger and apply this only to the high points of my face. If you guys take a product like this and you put it all over, it's gonna feel so thick and heavy and just uncomfy, and we don't want that. So the only place we really want to have extra glow is on the high points of our face anyways. We don't want to be super glowy like on our cheeks or our nose or in the center of our forehead, because that can just look like oil, and that glow can also make your face look wider than you want it to. So just target these glowy priming products to the high points. So I'm putting it on the tops of my cheekbones. It's okay if it goes a little bit under the eyes. I find that it helps with light reflection in that area and helps with some of the darkness. And then a little bit just above the brows. And if you have dry skin, you can add a little bit to like your chin, your cupid's bow, down the center of your nose. But I get oily in those areas, so I'm just gonna leave them. And now we have that nice wet looking glow to the skin, but it's targeted. It's in the areas that we want it and not all over, making us feel like grease balls or like we're wearing super heavy cakey makeup. I just realized that my light isn't turned on all the way. Ugh, sorry guys. Okay, hopefully that's better. But yeah, it is. See, you can see how like glowy and wet and dewy and yummy and delicious and plump my skin looks. Lovely. Okay, so what I'm gonna do now is go in with a matte foundation. Matte foundations, as opposed to dewy glowy foundations, are typically fuller coverage and they are much longer wearing. If you're using a dewy glowy foundation and you've done all this work to make your skin super glowy and dewy, and then you put that dewy foundation on top, everything is just going to be slip sliding all over the place, and it's going to be melted off your face and like broken up on top of the skin within just a couple of hours. So best practice, best thing that you want to do is get a super glowy, dewy base with your skincare and your primer, then go in with a matte foundation, and then we can add extra glow on top with highlighter if we want to, or like a dewy setting spray. But this is just going to help our makeup last all day. So I'm going to take a pump. This is the Lancome Tint Miracle Foundation, my new found love. I apply my foundation with a beauty blender, a damp sponge. You can use a brush if you want to, but I just find this is the best way to apply it on myself. So what I like to do is just take my finger in that foundation off the back of my hand and just kind of pat it in there. I want to warm it up a little bit from the warmth from my skin, and then apply it to my face and then blend it in with my sponge. So I'm just going to do a really light layer all over. And then any areas where I feel like I need extra coverage, I can build up the foundation with more layers of foundation, or I can go in with a concealer later and do that as well. Because I don't want my makeup to feel cakey, I don't want my makeup to feel heavy, I want it to still look like my skin, and the best way to do that is with a nice light layer so that we don't have a line right here. If our foundation doesn't perfectly match our skin on our neck, it can be really obvious, so we just want to blend it down the jaw and then down the neck as well. And then one pump wasn't quite enough for me. I didn't get any makeup on my nose, so I'm just going to do a little bit more. I have a lot of redness in my skin at the moment. It's been pretty inflamed on and off for the last few weeks. I feel like it's weather related. And then with any excess product on the back of my hand, I'm just going to go in and build up the coverage where I have some little dark spots or acne poking through, just to give myself more of a flawless look without having it feel super heavy all over my face. And that is how you avoid your makeup looking cakey. You guys just use less and make sure you're prepping your skin with a really hydrating base, and you're gonna be good. Next, we're gonna go in with some concealer. So I'm mixing two right now just because I don't have the perfect shade for me. I'm mixing the Makeup Forever Ultra HD Concealer with the Makeup by Mario Surreal Skin Concealer. I'm gonna use the lighter of the two on the inner portion of my eye, and then add a little bit of that lighter tone to the center of my forehead here and my chin as well, just to start giving some shape and definition back to the skin. When you go in with a layer of foundation, what that does is it makes your skin really even, right? It makes everything one color, but that makes everything look really flat. So we can lose the definition from our cheekbones and from our brow bone, make everything just look, yeah, like really flat and wide. So we want to start adding some shape back in, and we do that by shading with concealers and by contouring and bronzing. So this is the darker of the two shades of concealer, and I'm just adding that to the outer part of my eye, and then I'm going to add a little bit of that in with these as well, just because my skin is not that light quite yet. We will get there as winter progresses, but still a little bit too fair all on its own. You want to be careful on the outer part of your eye where we have our eyeshadow and our eyeliner down, that we are not covering any of that up or going over top of it with the concealer at all. What I like to do is just get it mostly blended in and kind of avoid that area altogether. And then I will take a concealer brush or something that's a little bit more defined and just use that to have a little bit more control to bring the concealer right up to the eyeliner and the eyeshadow here. If your concealer looks really dry underneath your eyes, you guys, you can prep your skin at the beginning with an eye cream, or if you have a moisturizer that doesn't have SPF or any irritating ingredients in it, and just bring that moisturizer right up underneath your eye. I don't have that issue, so I don't do that. And having that extra moisture underneath there for people who don't need it can cause concealer to kind of slip around. So I don't do that step. But if you're putting on concealer and it's looking really dry and it's clinging to the fine lines of your skin before you've even gone in and set it, you just need a little bit more moisture under there. So an eye cream or a moisturizer at the beginning when you're doing your skin prep will help with that a lot. Oh yes, I love that step. I love putting the concealer on. I feel like it just brings everything together. The next thing that we want to do is to set our under eyes. Even if you have dry under eyes, guys, you have to set your concealer. Otherwise, it just is gonna move around throughout the day. The skin around your eyes is super mobile. As you look around, as you blink, as you smile, you get a lot of movement in that area. And if you haven't set the cream and liquid products that are there, they're going to settle into your fine lines. They're gonna crease, things are gonna move around. So we want to set that with powder. I've tried many powders. I've tried loose powders, pressed powders. I've tried so many of them. And my absolute favorite powder to use underneath my eyes and on the rest of my face is the Charlotte Tilbury Airbrush setting powder. I buy this over and over and over again. It's amazing. I use it in my freelance kit. It's super finely milled and it's not drying. It does a beautiful job of setting the skin without making it look dry or heavy or cakey. So I'm just gonna take a brush that looks like this. Nothing too big, something that kind of comes to a pointed end. Dip it right into my powder, really get a lot of powder onto the brush, and then I'm gonna press that in on top of the concealer underneath my eye. Just going back and forth, packing that concealer in, not swiping it to start. Once you've pressed all of that powder in, if you feel like there's any excess, then you can really lightly dust that excess away. And then what I like to do is dip back into my powder one more time and then just add a little bit extra powder to the center of my face. As I mentioned, I get quite oily on my nose and kind of in my T-zone area throughout the day. So I like to just add a little bit of extra powder there. If you get oily all over, set your entire face. If you have dry skin and you feel like you don't have any oil that comes through your makeup throughout the day, then likely you don't need to set it at all, except for possibly areas where you get movement. So I would always set my smile lines here just on the sides of my nose, because as I smile, we get this shape here, and then my, again, makeup can settle in there, and so this can help prevent that. I know you see a lot of people on YouTube and Instagram using loose powders and powder puffs and baking underneath their eyes. As an everyday makeup wearer, you do not need to do that. Baking looks amazing on camera. It makes everything look really smooth and airbrushed and flawless on camera under bright lights. But if you have that much powder underneath your eyes or packing it onto your face as just like an everyday makeup wearer, it's gonna look so cakey and so heavy and so dry. So I typically don't recommend loose powders for like the day-to-day person. Baking is just not necessary in my opinion. All right, so now that we've got our concealer on, we can go ahead and finish off the eyes. So I'm gonna add eyeshadow to the lower lash line, and so are you guys. My clients seem so afraid to put eyeshadow on their lower lash lines. If you guys are like that, tell me why, because I don't really understand the reasoning. People just say like they're afraid of it looking like too much or like too, I don't know, I don't know, people just don't seem to like putting eyeshadow on their lower lash line, but you need it. We need to create balance. Having just the eyeshadow and the eyeliner on the top and nothing on the bottom actually makes our eyes look smaller. By adding some color underneath, we're gonna help open the eyes back up. So I'm just gonna go back into my same eyeshadows that I was using before. I'm gonna use the lightest of the three, the lightest of the two matte shades. And I've got that on a tiny little pencil brush here, and I'm just gonna run that from the outer corner all the way to the inner corner. And then I'm gonna go into the darker of the two matte shades, and I'm gonna add that just to the outer corner of the lower lash line. So as you're doing your mascara, if you make a mistake and you accidentally miss your lashes and you get a little bit of mascara on your skin, you don't want to go in right away and try to clean it up. What you want to do is just let that little bit of mascara dry. Once it's completely dry, then you can take a Q-tip and it will just flick right off. If the mascara is on your skin and it's still wet and you try to go in and clean it up, you're just gonna smudge black all over the place. So just leave it alone, let it dry completely, and then go in, and you're gonna be able to clean up any mistakes with your mascara that way so much easier. Oh, my foot fell asleep. I feel like this is a long video because I'm talking so much, but I've just been getting some questions from people in like real life lately that seem like super basic, super simple, really obvious, easy questions to me. And it made me realize that I need to like break things down in some of my videos to like an even more basic level, because everybody's at a different place in their makeup journey. Everybody has a different amount of knowledge. So I just want to have videos out there for everybody. So hopefully, even though this video is longer, you guys are getting something out of it. Anyways, let's continue. We need some bronzer, we need some contour. So my face is really matte and flat because of that foundation that we put on. So what I want to do is create some definition and give myself a little bit more shape. So we're gonna start by contouring. You can use a powder contour, you can use a liquid contour. What you want for your contour shade is for it to not be warm. It can be like a neutral kind of mid-tone color. It can be cool toned, almost like a gray tone. Traditionally, you would use things that were more of that gray tone, but I feel like for every day that can look a little bit harsh. You can look a little bit dead. It works really well in photography, but not so much for every day. I'm gonna use the Charlotte Tilbury Hollywood Contour Wand. This is my favorite shade, so I'll just show you what this looks like. It's not too gray, it's not too cool tone, but it's not warm tone, like it's not orangey or reddy either. It's kind of something in between. So just add a little bit to my cheekbone and then pat it in. I'll talk about placement on the other side. I just wanted to show you guys the color first. But I'm just patting in. I'm not swiping, because if I start swiping, I'm gonna move around that powder and foundation underneath and we're gonna lose coverage. And then in terms of placement, you're gonna wanna play around based on your face shape. I'm seeing a lot of Gen Z girls on TikTok putting their contour like on the top of their cheekbone. No good. What I like to say is to find the top of your ear and then just kind of extend that line down, and you want to take it down until either like the center of your eye here, like so, or even just like where your eye first starts, just so. This doesn't work really well for me just because of my bone structure, but sometimes you can suck in and that will create a line that you can follow. But for me, I've found that that line is just a little bit too low, so I prefer to use just the top of the ear method. So coming from the top of my ear, you don't need too much. I'm just gonna apply a little bit of liquid contour, and I take mine to about the edge of my eye, but I blend it a little bit further in. So now we're just patting, and we don't wanna blend down at all. If anything, we're blending up and back. We want to avoid blending towards the center of the face or down, because we want to give ourselves this little line here to imitate the look of a nice prominent cheekbone. That's what contouring is, you guys. It's creating shadows that alter the look of your natural bone structure. So by putting this line here, it makes my cheekbone look more lifted, which in turn gives me a little bit more of like a sucked in kind of slender look to my face. So if you like to contour your nose, you can contour your nose. If you have a larger forehead that you want to make look smaller, you can add contour to your forehead as well. I personally feel like my forehead is typically quite balanced to the rest of my face, so I don't feel like I need to add extra contour there. Sometimes I will do a little bit on my nose, but I'm gonna skip that for today. And we're just gonna move on and do a little bit of bronzer. So the difference between bronzer and contour is that your bronzer is gonna be a warmer shade. So it's gonna have more of a orangey or red undertone. It can also be neutral, but typically what you're going for with your bronzer is more of that sun-kissed look. You're giving a little bit of life back into your skin as if you've been out in the sun all day. So I'm going in with a fluffier brush that's not too dense. This is the Hourglass Luminant Bronze Light. When I first used this, I felt like it was almost too orange for me, but I've been using it ever since then and enjoying it, actually. Just liking having a little bit of a warmer look. I'm obsessed with the formula. It blends so nicely and looks so natural. I love, love, love the formula. I think if I buy it again, I might try a different shade because I like it, but I don't love it. But yeah, I love the formula. So I've just added that across my forehead. You wanna think about where the sun would naturally hit you when you're applying your bronzer. Basically anything that's lifted on the face is where the sun's gonna hit. So that the sun would hit us on our nice high cheekbones. So we'll add a little bit of bronzer there. You can bring that across the bridge of your nose if you want to, because same thing, your nose is lifted and so the sun would hit that first. And that's it. We don't put our bronzer all over our face. We're using it specifically to create shape and give warmth. One last place that you can put it is down your neck. This can help everything look a little bit more natural as well. I always like to dust it kind of under the jaw and then down the neck, just so that we're not so stark from forehead to neck. Blush placement is another thing that's really personal. It's going to be specific to your own face. What I would say with blush, I'm going to use Ecstasy from Charlotte Tilbury, is that you want to keep it higher on the cheekbone. The trend right now is to put it right on top of the cheekbone, where in previous years we would just be applying highlight. So you can do that if you want to, especially if your blush has some glow to it. I like to keep mine high on my face, but not quite as high as the younger gals are doing it these days. We want it to add life and lift, but I also like it to look natural, and I feel like if you put it too high, you kind of lose the natural feel. And now we can go in with a little bit of highlighter. So I've got that really nice dewy glowy base, but then I put a matte foundation on top. And so if we feel like we need a little bit or want a little bit of extra glow to the skin, we can do that by using a powder highlighter. I'm gonna use this one from Dior, and I'm gonna add this to the same places where I used the highlighting primer, so the high points of the face. So I'm gonna add this to the tops of my cheekbones. I'm using a really small brush here so that I can be precise with my application and my placement. A little bit above the brows. And that gives me that glow back right now when my makeup is super fresh and my foundation is still feeling really matte. As I go throughout my day, my natural oils are gonna start to come through, and they're gonna start to just like pop and give my skin that like nice healthy glow throughout the day. But we're gonna save ourselves a few hours before the makeup gets too oily and starts breaking down by starting with a more matte base and allowing it to get to that more dewy, luminous glow after a couple of hours. Brows are another really personal thing, you guys. The only thing that I'm gonna say about your brows is you have to do them. Whether you're filling them in with a pencil, a powder, or a gel, I recommend doing your eyebrows. They're so important. They frame the face. The easiest way to do your brows, in my opinion, is what I do on a day-to-day basis, which is just to use a tinted brow gel and comb it through. It gives them some shape, makes them look nice and neat. I can kind of lift them up and give them a bit of a laminated look. I don't like them to be like too stand-uppy. I feel like that looks a little bit awkward, but I do like to brush the hairs up so that we have some lift to the brow bone. As we get older, everything starts to come down, so we can lift it back up by just pointing everything in an upwards direction, including our brow hairs. All right, and then last but not least, we're gonna do our lips. So in that same winged eyeliner tutorial, I did a lip liner tutorial as well. So if you guys want a more detailed look at how I suggest you apply your lip liner, you can definitely check out that video. But I'm gonna go ahead and line my lips. I personally like to overdraw them on the top. I really like the extra fullness that that gives, and I feel like my lower lip is a little bit bigger than my upper lip, so it makes them look more balanced as well. And then I'm gonna go in with a liquid lipstick. I'm gonna go in with a matte lipstick. I feel like with reds, mattes just work a little bit better. Having such a bright color on your lips can be kind of risky. So I feel like if it's super glossy and dewy, then there's more of a chance of it like transferring or getting on things, or if you like go in for a hug, you might end up like getting your lip gloss on someone's shoulder or just things like that. I just feel like with the bolder colored lips, I prefer to go matte. This is Screen Siren, which is a Charlotte Tilbury Hollywood lip, which no longer exists. It's been discontinued for a while now, but I love this lipstick. Same thing as with the eyeliner, you guys. If you feel like you need to clean up the edges a little bit, just go ahead and do that with a Q-tip or some concealer on a concealer brush, just to make things sharper. And I always finish my makeup looks with some setting spray. So you can choose your setting spray based on your skin type. If you're looking for your makeup to last longer and for your setting spray not to affect the finish of your makeup at all, I would recommend the Urban Decay All Nighter Setting Spray. This is my favorite. I use it in my makeup kit. I buy this over and over and over again, and I have for many years. It sets the makeup, it brings all of the powders into the skin, and just helps everything kind of blend together and look more natural. It also helps your makeup last longer, and it doesn't affect the finish. So what I mean by that is it doesn't make your makeup look more matte or more glowy. If you have dry skin and you want your skin to look more luminous and you want to add some moisture in after you're finished with everything, you can use a more hydrating setting spray like the Charlotte Tilbury one. Or if you have really oily skin and you want to just really lock everything in and help prevent your oils from coming through as much as possible, you can use a mattifying setting spray. So Urban Decay is a mattifying version as well. So what you want to do is just think about the type of skin that you have and what you're looking for from your setting spray, and then purchase the one that goes best with that. Don't just buy a setting spray because someone else says they like it. Think about what kind of skin you have and what you want from your setting spray. That's what I would say for when it comes to primers and setting sprays. Those are the two most important things. I find that those kinds of products get recommended kind of willy-nilly, whereas they are very person specific. For primers, for example, if you have large pores, then you're gonna want a pore filling primer. If you have dry skin, you're gonna want a hydrating primer. If you have oily skin, you're gonna want a mattifying primer. It's only gonna work for certain types of skin, you get me? And that's it, you guys. Thank you so much for watching this video. Here is the finished look, my annual holiday makeup look. I hope that this video was helpful. I hope you guys learned something today. If you have any questions, definitely leave them in the comments down below. Favorite thing is to help you guys find your perfect skincare or your perfect makeup. So definitely let me know if you have any questions at all. Thank you guys so much for watching this video, and I will see you in my next one. Bye, guys.